there, and welcome to Conversations with Doc Martin. This video series focuses on extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. And you know what? Today's no exception. We're joined by my friend Gaëtan Pellerin. Gaëtan is an experienced sales and marketing executive with over 30 years of global experience in negotiation and sales management, and he's negotiated multi-million-dollar contracts in Japan, China, Thailand, Europe, and North America. He spent the last 11 years as a negotiation consultant and an executive coach, we have that in common, while focusing on his own development. Gaëtan loves helping and coaching people to see how much they can gain in confidence and the ability to see themselves. And this passion, combined with his development, has led him to write a book, which is entitled Mindful Negotiation, Being More Aware in the Moment, Conquering Your Ego, and Getting Everyone what they really want. I'm super excited to talk to her about it because the book explores the relationship and the impact of mindfulness in negotiation situations where ego can be triggered. And last but certainly not least, Gaëtan is originally from Montreal, Canada, lives in Scottsdale, Arizona with his wife and stepson, and also has 2 grown sons who live in Montreal. So Gaëtan, welcome to you.
Well, thank you, Martin. I'm honored and excited to be here today.
Yeah, super fun. We were chatting at dinner when you were so kind to give me the gift of your book, which I'm so enjoying. It's so well written. It's so easily, it's such an easy read from a comprehension perspective, and that's not an easy trick. And so kudos to you, my friend. I'm really enjoying the process of bringing these concepts into my life. And so, you know, we talked a little bit about your background. I'd love for you to maybe give it a little bit more color, give it a little bit more background about, you know, kind of how you ended up coming to where you are today.
Yeah, so first of all, just to go back in the story, when I was a kid, my dad was a firefighter. And, you know, like every kid, you wanted to do what dad was doing. And
yeah.
Wanted to be a firefighter, and you know, I didn't understand what was the meaning behind it other than just doing what dad was doing. As I was going to high school and everything, I was very attracted to healthcare, and my background is nuclear medicine. So, you know, injecting radioactive products into patients to diagnose them, cure them, and sometimes treat the cancer. But what was attractive to me was the ability to help people. And I thought this is what the same attraction being firefighter bring people to safety. So really helping people. So I chose healthcare, stayed there for 14 years, started as a summer job, ended up managing the department. And after that, I was starting to be bored. So I transitioned to sales. Okay. And I was hired as a sales rep. I got Sales Rep of the Year twice in a row. I did my MBA. I had 5 promotions in 3 years, including VP Global Sales, which was my dream job, Martin. But I was impatient and unhappy. So in 2010, a big event happened in my life, like, you know, all of us got triggered by that. I got let go into a reorg.
Yeah.
And I kind of forced myself to look, okay, so asking a question about my life, right? It's like, why am I so dissatisfied? I got everything I wanted, and I still don't feel happiness inside of me.
Yep.
Right? I turned down several job offers in management. You know, it's like I knew what I didn't want to do anymore, but I was not quite sure what to do next.
Got
right?
it.
I met a transition coach that was super awesome, and she says, talk to me about times and moments in your life where you felt passionate and where you felt you make a difference with people. And it was not about my resume or anything. It's like the best days for me was when I was on the road with my sales team, preparing for negotiation, coaching them, you know, doing a good job in the moment, also learning from areas of improvement. Here we go. So that was my next career, right? I started to work for a negotiation consulting company. I also became an executive coach because that was my passion. And at the suggestion of my executive coach, I joined a personal development group called the Diamond Approach. And I really worked hard for the last 11 years about ego and mindfulness and how ego was keeping me prisoner of my own emotional patterns and emotional reactivity.
Sure. That's a fascinating background, and it's, you know, it's funny how life brings you to a given place in which you
Yeah,
are today.
totally.
And so many people, particularly in those days between 2008 and, I guess really fair to say, 2008 to 2011, even 2012, you know, things were so scary. And because of that fear, it would have
Hmm.
been so easy to take the easy route, which I'm defining as staying within the field in which you could have gotten a job pretty easily, right?
Totally. Yeah.
But you didn't do that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's says a lot about you, frankly. And it kind of makes me wonder too, because nobody told you how to write a book. You're not making a living by writing a book, and it's a absolutely fantastic read. We're going to get into that, but why now? Why now? Because it's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah. You're totally correct.
Yeah.
So, first of all, writing a book came up one morning after a meditation, right?
Mhm.
5 years ago, or 6 years ago, I was in the personal development program, understand ego and mindfulness and everything. And suddenly one morning it came up to me that writing a book about negotiation and mindfulness, that will be my contribution to the world. And now,
Mhm.
Martin, you can say, "Oh, Gaëtan, you're jumping on your big horses here." It was just a feeling of helping people. It was
Sure.
my offer, right? So very humbly, I started to communicate to my family, my friends, that I was writing a book, because when you share your objective with other people, you get accountability, right? You cannot go
Mhm.
back. And wrote a book for 3 years. And after 3 years, the white page syndrome for me was not really a problem, but I get overwhelmed with
Mhm.
the structure and the content and how to make my position my ideas in the right way.
Mhm.
So it was a very humble realization, and I realized that I needed help. So I asked myself the question, Martin, is that book a nice to do, or is that more deeper meaning?
Mhm.
And that meaning of, being my contribution didn't change. So I needed to do something different. So I hired a book coach that really helped me with structure and clarity. And we had a call every week. And my commitment to him was, I'm going to give you content every week. So
Yeah.
no more excuses. I'm tired. I'm coming back on a plane. I don't have the juice. No, do it. And we'll have conversation about the structure. He will tell me that's not clear, I don't understand. And it was really helpful for me to take that concept to this final book.
Mhm.
And even today, my book is on the point to be published, the paper version of it. My book was my calling. This is what I needed to do over the last 5 years. It
Mhm.
just allowed me to be in contact with my own ego. We'll talk about that a little bit later,
Yeah.
but writing a book, it's not easy. There's a
Yeah.
lot of judgment, a lot of fears. And yeah, I just feel it's my calling, just helping people.
That's amazing. And so something you said really perked my ears up. Not only did you go out of your way to get a book coach, but you made the comment that, you know, no more excuses. And
Mhm.
I've got to do it every way. And so every week, excuse me. And so the idea around accountability and seeking help for accountability, because so many people have all these great ideas and they just never do it. And
Yeah.
and they make up all kinds of excuses. And you and I have had this conversation where, you know, I had started writing a book, and for whatever reason it didn't speak to me at the time, but this did, what we're doing right now.
Mm.
And you know, 8 months later, 7 months later, here I am with a whole bunch of guests. And so it talk a little bit about that aha moment when you really started to feel that you were making progress with the coach
Mhm.
versus by yourself. Talk to us a little bit about that journey.
It's really interesting because we all believe we can do it by ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Either it's our background, our education, asking for help. That doesn't necessarily resonate with
Yep.
being able, strong, and being able to do it all. Asking for help is probably the most humble thing people can do.
Yeah.
And really, for me, asking for help always been a sign of weakness. Why? Because I grew up in management, learning my way, learning my rope,
Mhm.
and I'm not going to ask for help. I'm going to prove you that I'm good.
Yep.
But proving ourselves, or proving ourselves for what? For recognition, for, to be loved, to be liked, to be accepted. And at the end of the day, and that's a very nice segue to talk about ego, because ego, it's our learned personality, right?
Yep.
It develops when we're a baby, 3 months old, and it's heavily impacted by our family dynamic. Moms was there, dad was there, do they loved us or not? The church, the community around us. So proving ourselves and trying to do it all, it's really not helping our own fulfillment, our own development. So, and I really appreciate when you said at the beginning that the book was written. Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't consider myself as an author. It's not natural for me to write. I have content, I have ideas, but I need a lot of polishing. And you know what? That's a realization I came up with. Do I
Mhm.
want to publish a okay book that nobody will read because it's not clear enough?
Right.
Or am I humble enough to say, no, I think I need help? And by asking for help, it doesn't take anything away from me. And that
Yeah.
was the biggest realization for me.
That's unbelievable that asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. And so many people just refuse to whether acknowledge and or just simply accept that.
Yeah.
And for so many people, there becomes a very jarring period in their life that forces them to get help to change their mind. And in this case, luckily, that wasn't the case. And so that realization, I think, is absolutely fantastic. I mean, as coaches, you and I certainly know that. And you were talking about you made the comment around how we all think we can do it ourselves because we're the best at it, and makes me think of Project Aristotle that Google did. They were trying to find the really the preeminent Google employee, and what they discovered was it's not the individual, it's the group. And
Mm-hmm.
so whether that's two people, you and your book coach, or a group, a team within a company or a dental practice in my world,
Yeah.
it's the power is reaching out for that help, because we all have our own individual skills that we can contribute. So let's
And it's
okay.
interesting because the skill we have are very narrow when you look at it from a
Yeah.
bigger perspective, right?
Yeah.
You coach dentists, I coach executive. People think they're the best, and they
Yeah.
might be the best, but that doesn't mean that they have an understanding of what else.
Absolutely.
And that's
Absolutely.
the fun of that. I'm a coach, I can share with people, why don't you ask for help? And I
Yeah.
can see their pain in their voice and their pain in their body language. I'm like, it's okay, there's nothing wrong with
Absolutely.
that, but it's a huge step to overcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about another step to overcome. So let's talk about the concept of your book, because I remember the first time that you were sharing it with me, and it really got my interest because it's certainly something that I love. And you think of business, and you think of negotiation, and you think of multi-million-dollar practice. There's no room for mindfulness in there. So talk to us a little bit about not just what it's kind of a combination question, so please forgive me. It's all about what's negotiation to you, and how did mindfulness come into this relative to what mindfulness means to you. Help us connect the dots between the two.
So too many questions in one sentence,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'll answer them all. That's
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
problem. So first of all, negotiation for me, it's a difference of point of view or
Mhm.
an opinion about the potential outcome, right? If both of us, Martin, we agree to go to have a dinner tonight at X restaurant, there's no
Mhm.
need to negotiate because we agree,
Yes.
right? If I want to buy a car, seller is putting their tagline, their tag price, window pricing. I want to have a lower price. I negotiate with them.
Yep.
Okay. So a negotiation is when we have a different perspective on a potential outcome. That
Yep.
doesn't mean we hate each other. That doesn't mean we're going to war. It's just a different view, right?
Yes.
And e-commerce, one of the strengths of e-commerce, they have removed all potential negotiation. You know, when you buy from Amazon, the price is $100. The price is $100. If you want to pay 80, well, you have to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right. And negotiation, it's normally with other party.
Mm-hmm.
Other parties, multiple parties, but sometimes we end up negotiating with ourselves. So in business, we're afraid to make a proposal, so we go a little bit lower, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we don't want to damage a relationship, so we choose other words. Should I go to the gym this morning because I didn't go yesterday? What kind of suit what am I wearing today? So negotiation is a constant battle, either in business or with ourselves. So negotiation is not like, oh yeah, for the people that negotiate contract, we spend our days influencing and negotiating people with people. And I really appreciate your question about what's mindfulness and negotiations, like really odd, right? So from a reader perspective, I think it's really powerful as a question. Negotiation for me, it's, the definition of it, it's all about intellect, it's all about planning, all about logic. If I tell my story, you should be able to believe my story, right? Mm-hmm. So we use a lot of persuasion. We use a lot of, I want to win, whatever it is. It's all about skills, talent, and structure. But we're missing the point here. Negotiation, it's about managing emotion. Mm. When negotiations start, or we find ourselves into a negotiation, we are triggered. Our ego is triggered, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe this is a good place to talk a little bit about ego, because a lot of people say, I don't believe I have an ego, or ego doesn't exist. Well, every time we are triggered, ego, this is the oldest structure of our brain, and it came up where our daily task was the difference between eating and versus being eaten, right? So very instinctual, reactive reaction. This is almost our survival skills, right? So back in the days, that was very helpful. Today, is ego very helpful? There's no really threatening situation, other than some healthcare situation, but our ego reacts the same way. So every time we are triggered, our ego thinks, oh my God, I have to survive. So negotiation, it's all about survival. So unconsciously, I'm going into a negotiation, Martin, I want to win. Mm-hmm. I want to prove myself right. I want to get more than the other side, right? So basically, meaning I win, they lose, right? It's unconscious. So really, we're going in and we want to fight. We want to have proposals that suit us, not suiting them. So this is all about emotion. So when we plan for structure, when we plan for logic, and it doesn't go well, now what? We're getting stressed, right? If the negotiation doesn't go as planned, now we're stressed. We're afraid to lose the deal, afraid to upset the other party. We want to prove ourselves. And when we are emotional, we're not making good decisions. Mm. And I'm sure you have friends that went to a divorce. It's like there is nothing rational in the divorce, where everybody's fighting for everything. You just want to hurt your ex-partner or your ex-partner ex-to-be. We're not very good human people managing emotion. So negotiation for me, it's all about being able to manage my emotion and the other party's emotion in real time. Okay. I can be very good with structure. I can be very good with methodology, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be a good negotiator if I don't know how to manage my own emotion. Okay. And this is where mindfulness and negotiation came together. There's a lot of book about business, a lot of book about negotiation, a lot of book about mindfulness. Yes. But to my knowledge, there's no book that marry both together, right? And it's not easy because business people, rational people, don't want to have anything to do with emotion. Yep. Right?
Yeah. They think they don't have time.
They don't have time, or whatever the reason, they don't believe in it. I don't want to meditate for 6 hours, right? But mindfulness just help us to slow down the pace and just breathe, right? Okay. It's like why are you taking that personal? It's not personal. Oh, okay. Just changing the perspective and giving us option as well to choose from another behavior.
Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. And I've had a window into that from reading your book. And for those who are listening to this who haven't had the wonderful opportunity yet, you talk about mindfulness, slowing down, keeping your ego in check, keeping your emotional in check. That's not easy. So, what's your secret sauce, as it were, if we were a fast food chain? What's your secret sauce to being mindful and to share with people how to stay mindful in a given situation?
Yeah, I love this question, Martin. It's totally true. Mindfulness, it's not easy. And it starts with some misconception, right? So people say, I don't have the time. I don't want to meditate for 6 hours. It's not about that.
Right.
Or you don't understand my life. I'm bombarded with multiple priorities and I have my family, my work. I don't have the time to be mindful, right? Those are misperception, or being mindful takes a lot of time. Being mindful is being in a moment right now. In this moment, you and I, Martin, there's nothing else, right? Yep. When we are in our ego brings the past and worries about the future. So for example, if I was not mindful on this call, I might be scared of not looking good, of not having all the right answer. Maybe I will be insecure about the perception that you have of me, right? So I'm worrying about the future, but it's based on my experience in the past. So when I was doing my own personal development, I came up with a very simple but innovative methodology to help people to be mindful and to go through a process, because you can be mindful and not doing anything with it and we're done.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a kind of a play on word. It's C for you.
Yes.
The fourth pillar that starts with C that will help with mindfulness. Okay. So the first C is connecting with yourself. We said mindfulness, slow down. It's like, all right, let's breathe. Let's remove the world from my thought process. Let's focus on this moment. And connecting with ourselves means focusing inward. So what's happening in my body? My emotions, my feelings. And just doing that step, Martin, for business people, it's scary because we're told to ignore our body. Right? We're told to ignore our emotion because emotion in business are not great. But in this moment, you feel something inside of you. It could be joy, it could be relaxation, it could be interest. There's something there, right? Number 2C, or the second C, is being curious. So being curious about the inner experience. Why am I so upset right now? Why am I so worried about the future, right? And by observing what's going on, it's easier. For example, I feel that I'm angry. By naming the emotion like that, it kind of removes ourselves from the emotion. I cannot observe an experience and be the experience at the same time.
Yep.
So allowing me to observe is like, okay, I'm upset. I'm upset.
Right.
Okay, I just said that, and I don't have to act about it, right? I can just say it. And now the curious part is, I'm wondering where is that coming from? Why am I upset today? I was expecting that person to do this to me. He didn't do that. I'm upset. Why is that? Where is that coming from? Right? So really be curious about it. That leads me to the third C, which is compassion toward ourselves. Because when we're curious and say, oh my God, this is how I was when I was a kid, I'm so ashamed of myself. Now, primal reaction or survival reaction can kick in. And now we can judge ourselves, we can be ashamed or whatever. We're not going to grow if we're just judging ourselves, right? So C3, a very important pillar about having compassion for yourself. Whatever comes up, that's not who we are.
Mm-hmm.
If I realize that I'm an angry person, impatient, that's not the real me. That's my ego.
Yeah.
Right? And this can be C1, C2, C3. You go back to C2. It's a circle, right? It's not a linear process.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth seed called change or choices. The purpose of being mindful is to behave differently.
Mm-hmm.
And to behave differently, we need to be in a different state of mind and asking ourselves different questions. For example, what can I learn from this situation? You know, somebody's yelling at me instead of being reactive and just want to fight back. What can I learn from that?
Mm-hmm.
How can I help that person to be not that angry, right? What if the other person is right? Is that taking something out of me, right? Because we want to defend our perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer for me will come as a choice or a different option. And it will come from a place of knowing, an intuition, a gut feeling, something in our body that it's not from our head,
Mm-hmm.
right? It will come up like that. And I just want to give you an example, Martin. I think I shared that with you. I moved from Montreal to California in 2016. It was my dream since I was a teenager to live in California. Why, rationally speaking, I don't know. I've been to California 30 times before I moved. And every time I land, I feel like I'm coming home. So
Yeah.
there's something there. You know, I got married, I got kids, I got divorced. Now the time to leave, my parents are getting older. And one day I said, okay, time out here. Why am I doing stuff to please other people?
Mm.
Why am I not doing what I want? Well, mom is going to be upset, or my kids are going to be really sad, right? There was always something. So that was prior to my own development, but I must have done this work in this shape. Like, okay, what's going on here? Why?
Mm-hmm.
Who's preventing me to go to California? My mom. No, she didn't say a
Nope.
thing. My
Nope.
kids. No, they're supporting me.
Yep.
So that was my ego creating a scenario that if you move, nobody will like you. Nobody will love you.
Yep.
Nobody will talk to you. You'll lose your friend. And when I did that process, I came to the fourth pillar and I'm like, no, if I don't choose for myself today, nobody will ever do, because there's never a good timing, right? My parents are 80s and more, older. That's not the time to leave when they're 80s, right?
Absolutely.
So this process for me, I'm so happy that I followed that guideline, that mindfulness approach, because moving to California was my dream. And when I shared that with my parents, I knew they will react negatively. I knew they will cry, but I said, this is where I feel I'm going to be happy.
Right.
There's no other reason than this is where I feel I need to go next.
Mm-hmm.
So was I afraid? Yes, of course. Was I scared? Of course. But I felt inside of me that was the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
And when I talk about choice or change, it takes courage, right? But that voice, you know it's the right thing to do when you are in the right frame of mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. Recently, before we filmed this, a couple weeks ago, there was a singer on America's Got Talent. I don't know if you saw this.
No.
And she is fighting cancer and has like a 2% chance of survival.
Mm.
And she got up there and she sung. She goes, her stage name is Nightbird. And she went up there. She was beautiful. She got the golden buzzer, which is like a big deal. But what she said really struck me. She said, you can't wait till life isn't hard anymore before you choose to be happy.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there in my living room, rewinding my DVR, going, wait, what did she say? And it's so true. And using your methodology, your C4U methodology can kind of help you, as you described, through not just negotiation, but also other things in your life, as you described.
Yeah.
And so I want to stay with a book for just a little bit longer, because I got to ask you a question. I am really enjoying the book, have enjoyed the book, and you have a character in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And the character is named Alexis. And not the same one from that other show produced in Canada, but Alexis. And so it just feels so real to me. Like, who's Alexis? Like, you got to tell us what the story is behind this woman in the book. Who
Martin, you want to meet her, right? That's the purpose of that question. So first of all, I really appreciate what you're telling me about the character, how it's written.
Yeah.
Alexis, it's not a real person.
Okay.
It's a character.
Yeah.
So first of all, I read several books written by Robin Sharma. I don't know if you know him.
Mm-hmm.
He's always using a character to be the medium to deliver the message. So
Sure.
I just thought it might be a bit more easy for the readers to do that. Alexis is not a real person, but it's based on real life event, right?
Mm-hmm.
A young sales representative, very confident, very outgoing, going through negotiation without getting any training and really learning the hard way, right? Her boss is telling her what to do and do this and you'll be fine, and it doesn't go as planned and she is miserable. And she goes through executive coaching and really go through the step of the C4U steps. Her failure, her success, it's really what's happening in real life, right? So the situation are real, but the character is obviously fictitious.
Yeah, no, it certainly felt real for me. That's for darn sure. And I love how you not only have this character, but the back half of the book, so to speak, is really practical other lessons relative to life, and it kind of perked my ear up because I've had several climbers on my channel, 2 who've climbed Everest and some others. And so I have to ask you, what's the connection for you between climbing and negotiation? Tell us a little bit about that.
It's an interesting question because the first image for me that I'm thinking when I think about negotiation is about climbing a mountain. Why is that? Because climbing a mountain, it's easy from the outside looking in. Negotiation, everybody can do it, no problem. I can negotiate until you are in negotiation and you lose control.
Yeah.
So when you climb, a bit of training, I can climb any mountain, it's easy. When you start climbing, the path is clear, you're not out of breath, it's easy. The beginning of the negotiation, normally it's easy unless you must deliver bad news. But the beginning is straightforward. As you climb higher, it's coming steeper. You're getting out of breath, right? You don't have a lot of oxygen. You even willing to take risks to achieve the summit, like climbing Mount Everest. In negotiation, it's the same thing. The longer you negotiate, the more emotion they have, the less it goes as planned, you lose control. And you're also willing to take risks to achieve a deal, not the summit, but a deal.
Sure.
By accepting a bad deal just for the sake of accepting a deal, right? And sometimes you feel you have no choice than to just keep going, even if the best thing to do will take a time out and just relax a little bit. So as you read through the book, all the situation in the second part are related to mountain, right? When you hear mountain rumblings, when the volcano erupts. So for me, there's a lot of similarity, a lot of skills in both. I am passionate about Mount Everest. I want to climb Mount Everest, but I know in my heart that if I don't train with a coach and I practice, there is no way I can do that, right? And negotiation doesn't have the same drama, but people think it's easy. So when I do consulting with my clients, I coach the negotiator, obviously, but I also help them to manage their internal stakeholder. Because negotiating is like, what the hell? You start high and you finish low, and there's no secret there. But in reality, it's very difficult because of emotion, because of how we feel. Right? And climbers, it's a sign that sometimes they want to prove themselves. Sometimes they take risk and they want to show that they are able to do it. So there's a lot of ego when you do high altitude climbing. And, hats off to people that are 500 feet from the summit and they say, there's no way we can do it. Let's go back down, because this is all about being in a moment and say, all right, I'm putting myself too much at risk. I'm going to forego my ego here and just go back down.
Absolutely. No, I think I love the analogy, and we talked earlier about asking for help. That's foregoing your ego as well. And so foregoing your ego and being present in the moment, and reality testing, using an emotional intelligence term, to really understand where you are in this space right now. And I love what you said earlier too about being in this space and being mindful, relative to the example you used was around, if you were to come on this recording and, worry about how you would be perceived or how the background would look, et cetera. I've actually never thought of it that way before. And so it's a litmus test, is it not? If you're thinking about anything other than being in the present moment, about how you're being perceived, or is oh my gosh, did I just say something stupid? Well, probably not. And so, and probably the only person that noticed it is you. So I think that's really fantastic advice, and an additional tool, if you will, to kind of go through. So, I guess as we kind of start to kind of wrap up our time together, a couple more things I want to cover. So relative to negotiation, because I also love what you said. I love a lot of what you said about how it's most difficult to communicate, to negotiate with our own selves.
Yes.
And so much in life is negotiation. And you were talking about buying things on e-commerce, and today, you can buy a car online. I mean, I bought my last car online in 15 minutes, including financing. Didn't have to negotiate at all. So, but you can't escape it in life.
Yeah.
And so, what kind of advice, if somebody came up to you and out of the blue and said, "Hey, I want to get better in negotiation," like what would you say to them? It's a big question.
It's a big question, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because negotiation and influencing, we do that 10 times a day.
Yeah.
Right? All of us, kids, parents, professional. Yeah. So for me, the ability to be a better negotiator is to understand emotion first, and plan for what can happen. So for example, I'm planning to deliver a bad news to a customer. Whatever bad news is, a price increase, or I cannot deliver your product on time. I'm preparing for bad news. I need to be able to plan for a reaction on their side. I need to be able to plan, what if it feels like strangling me, or I cannot talk, I can just use fake language. I need to be able to plan to be in control. And I need to practice those skills, right? So you can be a good negotiator, even if you never been trained, if you're aware of your own emotion and just the ability to slow down time and say, all right, what's going on here? I'm in fear. Okay, so that's a good step. Naming what's going on, it's a first step, right?
Yeah.
And after that is being able to stay calm, right? In some other areas, they call it being in the zone. Being in the zone is like everything slows down to a crawl, but your brain is like super active. What else is there? I see that from the corner of my eye. That's it in negotiation, right? Negotiation, people don't like it, so they go straight to their finish line, and their finish line is oftentimes their lowest acceptable position, because they just want to be done with it, right? It's almost like negotiation is threatening our survival, and we just want to go straight to the finish line. My advice will be slow down, talk about emotion, plan for your emotion, ask for help, right? Negotiation are going to be almost 100% emotional.
Right.
And we're not a good negotiator when we negotiate something that we're emotionally attached.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the main reason why surgeons are not allowed to do surgery on their family member.
True.
Exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So being able to control your emotion, ask for help, slow down, plan for what if scenarios if you need to do that. But it's really practicing to be in those situations without losing control.
I think that's awesome. And I was going to actually ask you kind of a closing question around the idea that you've written this book, as we talked about earlier, nobody forced you to write this book. Like, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to give up? But you just gave that advice, because it's the same thing. It's negotiating externally versus internally, keeping your emotions in check, not allowing them to kind of cloud your vision, and then figuring out, okay, what's my next step? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's kind of interesting how that works, isn't it? That it's kind of one and the same. So
it is. And writing a book, for sure, you're going to fight your ego.
yeah.
Right? The first purpose is, why am I writing a book? It sounds like an easy question, but you need to understand what's the intent behind it.
Yep.
Right? So let's say you just want to demonstrate that you're so intelligent in a field. Well, it will come across like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So really understand, setting the intent, understand what's going on. What's my intent in my next negotiation? Is it to win at all costs? Is that what I'm really looking for? And really asking questions and just, answering, and just being in the right frame of mind to be successful.
That's great advice. Be in the moment, be in the right frame, keep our ego in check, connect to what it is we really want out of this situation, and don't be afraid to take that next step up the mountain, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Gaëtan, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll go ahead, as we usually do, post his contact and or other information below. And so just want to remind everybody, please don't forget to hit subscribe and click the notification so you don't miss out on any of our next guests, book reviews, or heart to hearts. And remember, life speaks to you. If you think it doesn't, you're not listening. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.